Ken Hart is managing director of Cornerstone Advisors in Bellevue. The firm was recognized in Fortune magazine as one of the top 50 registered investment advisors in the U.S. Ken, welcome to About the Money. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I know you serve a lot of yawns, the young and wealthy but normal. Are you getting panicked phone calls from them about the state of their portfolios?
Yeah, I would think in some cases, yeah, we certainly are. It'd be dishonest to say we weren't. I think one of the defining characteristics of a yawn is that they are indeed young, right? And so coming into wealth earlier in their life cycle, going through moments like we are now, we're having a collision of all of these events, while in isolation we've seen before, never in history have we seen all of these things come together at once. And it's disconcerting when they're young. They have a long time ahead of them through which their capital needs to last. And they're nervous about whether that can now continue in this kind of environment.
You can always tell them, hey, if you think you lost a lot of money, just think about Bill Gates. I heard that he lost $1.5 billion, and he's replaced by Warren Buffett as the richest man in the world now.
Yeah, remarkable, isn't it?
So the Northwest is a hub of wealth, and I understand that Microsoft and Amazon alone has contributed something like 10,000 yawns into this region. And these are pretty different people than the old money of the past, huh?
They really are. It's really an echo, if you will, of the 90s when a lot of wealth was created very quickly in the technology industry, and as a result, the wealth was created very early, as I said before, and you had folks that were at a place where they had enough capital to retire, if you will, or go do whatever they wanted, but had a lot of energy, they had a lot of time, they had a lot of association with their community, a lot of causes, and they've now redirected a lot of that effort, I think, into the community, family, social causes, other new businesses that they started, and it's just really perpetuated, I think, a really fun and sustainable community that we see the Northwest in today.
So does the downturn affect them any differently, and what advice are you telling them when they call all, worried and nervous?
Yeah, and it certainly does affect everyone. There's really no one insulated from this, and the reactions are all very different. But as it relates to the yawns in particular, they're really looking for guidance. Again, they have come into wealth earlier than their mentors and their parents or prior generations, and so they're looking for leadership from advisors like us to say, how am I to respond to this? I haven't seen this before, even in textbooks perhaps, and certainly haven't lived through it. Perhaps something similar in the sort of the tech implosion of early 2000. But they're really looking for guidance. And can we sustain through this time, not having to be able to look back in their own personal experience and find anything that even looks like this?
Is the advice any different for those people who don't have millions? What would you advise them?
I think the things that are the same, whether you have millions or you're really a middle class person working hard and saving through your 401k. Some of those pieces of advice are, and they're really being amplified, the importance of them right now. First and foremost is to make sure you have good visibility to your cash flows for the next foreseeable future of a year or two. To the extent you think you're going to have a shortfall, make sure you have that saved away and it's accessible in a liquid form that you can attend to it when you need to. I mean, that's what we've learned in these hard lessons, these big companies that have perhaps gone out of business recently, is they run out of liquidity and cash flow. So it's a really good reminder. Also managing your spending, your accumulation of debt, that burden on you. Unfortunately, this may be too late to have advised. I mean, this would have been good advice for these people to hearken now a year ago, if you will, but I think those are good lessons. And the importance of really actually having a plan and not living by just your gut instinct, which will drive the fear and emotion of the moment and will cause you to do things that are long-term going to be poor consequences to the accumulation of wealth over the long term by purely living on emotion as opposed to actually having a plan, having a counselor that can guide you through it and stay disciplined.
For example, if your emotions tell you, get out now,
right,
go liquid, what happens if you go into cash? I mean, you think that you might be being safe, but
right,
what is really going on?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the madness of the crowds, if you will, the moment right now, that it's everything screaming to do exactly what you just described. And in fact, a lot of people have. But I think that there's not yet a realization that while they feel safe, as you say, at the moment, that they're taking on a different set of risks. I mean, I think the reality of doing that, in fact, going to cash now, is we look to history as our guide, even if it only rhymes with itself going forward, we know it won't repeat exactly, is that sentiment, the same sentiment that's driving things down, the anxiety, can turn very quickly, and a lot of the cash that's on the sidelines can come into the market, and everybody can pile back in and drive those returns back up just as quickly as they've come down. So I think there's a risk that they miss that and they lock in these losses they've experienced forever. And
plus inflation.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they could actually be on the downside because of the effects of inflation.
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth, Josephine. I think a lot of the actions of the world banks, the Fed, the Treasury of late injecting capital into our system, very needed. The long-term consequence of that is likely inflation down the road. And so I think you're exactly right. They are accepting, maybe not knowingly, that they are in fact going to be going backwards, that their purchasing power will be going down over the long term if they hide out in cash.
And in the last 30 seconds, I just want you to address the fact that we all hope and expect that the actions by the federal government would result in something more immediate, and it hasn't.
That's true.
But does that mean that they're not having any effect?
No, not at all. And I think that's, unfortunately, I think maybe some more guidance could have been given when they made these decisions, that this was going to take time. The injections of this capital, the way they've done it, hope to restore confidence, but the actual seeing that cash in the consumer's hand in the marketplace, restoring actually the transactions of commerce, are going to take a while to work through the system. So I think there is some patience required.
So months, maybe even years.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ken. It was great advice, and I hope to see you again on About the Money.
Thanks for having me.